Welcome, everyone. This is our last session of the day in room 2 and the last session of the festival, unfortunately. As many of you are probably aware, the Mekong River is under threat from dams and overexploitation of its resources. Five films from Laos, Myanmar, and Cambodia will examine the issue and concerns from a natural and cultural perspective. The film will be screened outside on the stage after this talk. Rithdee, a columnist, scriptwriter, film critic, will introduce the filmmakers for the pre-film discussion, and he'll be the moderator for today.
Hello. Good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Director's Talk, Mekong 2030. And we have three filmmakers here with us today. It's a little bit awkward. I was just telling these guys that we are going to talk about the films before we see the films. So ideally, we should talk about the films after we see the films. But it's all right, it's okay. I'm not going to spoil the fun. I mean, because there is no greater sin than spoiling a movie these days, right? I think corruption is okay, but spoiling a movie, it's not okay. So don't worry. So let me introduce the panelists today. We have the Mekong 2030. There are 5 short films that imagine the future of the Mekong River in 10 years' time. But today we have 3 directors from 3 countries with us today. So Anysay, Keola from Laos, and Kunikar, Sotho from Cambodia, and Kham from Myanmar. So before we go into the talk, we have a brief video made by Luang Prabang Film Festival, who is the commissioner, the organizer of Mekong 2030. So please watch this short video about the project.
The reason that I decided to apply for this project because the concept is Mekong 2030, which is something that's happening in the future. So that's interesting for me, how Laos in the next 10 years going to look like, how people going to look like, and the environmental issues that we talk about will be like. So that's challenging for me.
The issues surrounding the Mekong are very important one. Mekong is a lifeline of the many different Southeast Asian countries, and so because this project comprises different filmmakers in the region, so we'll get to see the issues from different perspectives from Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, and Burma, which I thought would be really interesting and a good opportunity for us to come together to look at Mekong as a whole.
Whether we allow ourselves to go that far, or is there anything we can do to prevent it? Because the impact that will happen, it will be not just our generation, but many generations to come.
This film might surprise the audience in a way that the Akha people, the Akha tribe, their rich culture, traditional, and their lifestyle, and their lovely characteristic, the tragic story behind their beautiful appearance.
idea of the film comes from the moment when I read the book Sipatra from the Nobel Prize writer Hermann Hesse. In that book, when it tells story of a man who lived in the same time with Buddha, but he still can find another way to be enlightened. So in that book, he was enlightened besides the river when he really focus and watch the flow of the river.
The challenges of bringing this script to life is actually the fact that it is rather an unconventional take on the issues of Mekong environmental problems, and how to not be didactic about the subject and to actually consider it from another perspective, and yet to be engaged with the issue and then actually offer another approach, which is also could be taken up by the decision makers and should be taken up by decision makers with regards to the policy about Mekong.
I understand that a country needs development, and there are already strategies in place. But what I worry the most are the impact on the people, and whether those strategies are enough to protect our livelihood and our environment.
I use film to encourage change because films tell a lot. It goes directly into your heart, your emotion, and then your brain, your eyes, your ears. That's what I can tell. You can put any issue or anything, any story, and that present to audience. That's why I use the film as a medium.
We don't want to blame anybody. We must grow with awareness that we don't kill our own planet.
It is not only about the specific Mekong River, but it's also about a very general river, like every river.
So that's a short introduction video of Mekong 2030 project. I have seen the films, all the 5 films in the project, and the interesting thing for me is the way each of the directors here, including the other 2 that are not here with us, who are not here with us today, the way each of them interpret the theme in the project and the name Mekong and the idea of Mekong in 10 years, 2030. And we have everything from, from the video, it looks like the idea behind the project is to address the environmental problem concerning the Mekong. But when you see the film, which you will later on, you will see that the directors here, the filmmakers, they don't just focus on the environmental aspects of the Mekong, because the problem concerning the river and environment, the region in general, can be interpreted as cultural or economic or socio-economic or even historical dimensions. And that's reflected in each of the films by the filmmaker. So let me begin with Anysay and then Kunikar and Sai. How did you approach the brief when you are contacted to be part of the project? And how do you approach the theme Mekong 2030, and how did you end up with the film that you made?
The hardest part for me to come up with the script is that the producer asked for that we try to include the resolution, actionable resolutions to the
solution
problem. Solution, yes. But for me, I look at it as the film itself, if I want to present the solution, I think documentary could be a more, a concrete ways to offer such solutions and like what the famous climate change film that was made before. So I steer the directions of my script, my approach a bit to a more emotional, engaging to the audience. To hopefully after watching the films, it could make the audience asking themselves like, are we also a part of the problem, and then how can we move on? So I start researching on reading all articles about, I think everyone do the same, right? About the issues, and then one article that inspired me is that there's this one country I will avoid to mention that trying to protest the upper stream country not to build the dam, but at the same time that country also having big number of dams projects in itself. So I think this like can be an interesting character. So I try to use that as an inspiration to come up with the character, and then like I mentioned in the film, like I try not to pinpoint or blame, like, oh, it's from this, like everyone's, we are all, making a living, making life from the Mekong. So, and also I want the film to be easily communicate with the general audience. So I came up with the metaphor that the Mekong River is symbolized by the mother, because mẹ in Laos also means mother in Thailand, in Cambodia.
mean river, right?
Mẹ mean the mother. So that's how I approach to this project.
Sorry if we have to be a little bit abstract, because as I said before, you will see the real films later on. But just to give you an idea, Anysay's film is called The Brother Che.
The Che Brother.
The Che Brother. Che as in Che Guevara.
Che Guevara, yes.
You see what he means. And it's a science fiction. It's a science fiction thriller film,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Which is quite unusual given the nature of the project. As I said before, it's supposed to be about climate change and environmental project, but we are treated with an exciting thriller action film with science fiction elements, and which is quite impressive. Right? Maybe a little bit on the science fiction.
A little bit, just the smell.
Okay. ครับ next to Kunikar ครับ
Yeah,
Kunikar Sotho from
thank you.
Cambodia.
Thank you. Yes, we were invited. I was one of them to come to learn. Well, first we were asked to join the Mekong 2030 project, and then we invited to come and learn in different workshops by the Mekong River Commission and the Asia Foundation and Oxfam. At first invitation, we know the theme was about Mekong River. So I wrote already a treatment that based on the river and the livelihood on the river. But then when we came to the workshop and we was started with the 3 different organizations, and I learned that actually the problem is bigger than just the Mekong River itself. It's actually the environment. And so on the global fact, we have global climate change that we strongly discuss everywhere in the world. And then at home and our region, we have the Mekong River that is directly confronted to us. And so then I started to change the storyline to be based more on the climate change. And then when I go on the scout, which was in April, to the northeast of Cambodia, Stang Trai, which was the northeast part of Cambodia, close to Laos. And then we met with different hill tribes, also Cambodian on the lower land, on the upper land as well. And then I discovered that they are really quite ignorant of the word climate change. It's really quite ignorant, and they didn't understand that the river that could change its course. For them, the river is still based on the dry season, normal dry season, normal raining season, and if it's very dry, it's only the matter of extreme dry, and if it's very flooding, it's the extreme rain. So for them, they still think it is a tradition. But it is, for us, we know that it's not a tradition anymore. And so I feel like there are two aspects in the film, that I should put at. One is the climate change. And then because climate change cover the globe factor, but also cover the Mekong River and the livelihood, not just on the Mekong River itself, but the whole Cambodia as a nation and the region as well. And then the other factor is that the livelihood, we live in Phnom Penh, the capital. We learn, we watch TV, we heard about climate change. We probably think what can help us if we know. I don't know if we even know that yet. But let alone the people that live on the river, on that stretch from downstream all the way to upstream in Cambodia, they don't even know that. They don't even know what the climate change is. And so I think it's them who should know first. So how can we reach to them? And I am hoping the film can be screened and at least can. I think it's happening, and if it's happening, how do we help them to be aware? They have to be prepared of it. And so yes, from the first invitation all the way to script, all the way to shoot, the story is quite evolution. Yes, evolving, and all the way to the editing. At the end, the film was still very much focused on the climate change, that our theme, and the people to be aware of that. But yeah, the emotional story and everything evolving as we and myself and my crew and my cast are sitting on each locations, because we are filming in 3 different locations. One is the northeast of Cambodia called Stang Trai, where close to Laos, and then we film in Siem Reap, in the 2 different rivers in Siem Reap. So every time we sleep, we stay with on the homestay, on the floating village every time, and every time we meet the people, the emotion is changing, and it's getting more and more deeper and deeper and deeper to how we can translate their voice onto screen. And my crew and I feel this big responsibility of putting that on screen, so that they at least something reach to them. Thank you.
So Kulikar's film is framed as a road movie, I would say, with 2 guys going by boat on the river together, and there's an adventure along the way, right? Yes. Or you call it river movie, not road movie, right? Because it's on the river. Sai from Myanmar, please.
For me, my story, firstly, we were approached in a way that the story is happening besides the river, like in the perspective of the river itself is watching them happening. But during we do first like research, location scout, and then we find out more story just on another village just beside the river, and that becomes it's concerned with connect directly with the river itself. It's about the gold mining besides the river, and then it wasn't in the script actually at first, and then but while we were doing more research, and then we find out that the cyanide from the gold mining caused the river, and then there's no fish anymore for the villager, and more story of their livelihood and social economy change. So we changed the script during just before the script, and we put more about the current issue inside the films, and we try to catch more about the recent and issue inside the films, and the film is based in a small village of Akha tribe, which living beside the river, and one thing I'm lucky is I got a very good character. That's it's like I don't have to direct anything for the acting, and they will just you just mention something about the river, and then they will do it by their own feelings. Yeah.
Yes, because science film, it's called the
forgotten voices of the Mekong River.
The forgotten voices of the Mekong. It's set in an Akha Hill tribe village, and for me it has a very social realist feel and almost a documentary. And because as he just said that, so you use real people in the village in your film, right?
The whole village, and you just go out and try asking them to do something in front of a camera, and they just act for it.
Yes. Unfortunately, we don't have the Thai film with us, the representative of the Thai section, Thai episode in the project. The director is Anosha, who's a very well-known Thai director internationally, and her film is quite interesting because totally different from the rest. It's almost an experimental avant-garde, like a dream versus reality, imagination of. It's about an artist who's working on a Mekong project. It's very difficult to explain, but when you see the film, you understand. I mean, that's why the project is interesting, because you have a literal representation of the river. And you see the river and people working or living by the river. And you also have a metaphorical representation of the river as mother, as the lifeline, as the blood that courses through the entire region. And with Anosha's film, The Line, the river is like a metaphysical level of how Mekong interacts with the people in the region. So that leads me to the next question, if I may. Do you have any personal connection or memory with the Mekong River yourself? For example, I live in Thailand. I've been to Luang Prabang, I've been to the Northeast, to Loi and Nong Khai, and of course I see the Mekong River, but I don't know, for each of you, do you have any personal recollection or memory or anything that inspires you when you have to be involved in the project? Who would go first?
Yeah, I grew up in Vientiane, and Vientiane city is like next to Mekong River as well. But I grew up not so much connected to the river. The river Mekong to me, it's more like a tourism spot. Like we live in the city lifestyles. So my most memory, the experience that I have connected with Mekong is a couple years ago that we have to throw the ashes of my father-in-law to the Mekong. So we need to take the boat to the Mekong and then throw the ashes as traditions. And it feels so weird that the guy who do the ash
Scatter
throw,
the ashes, right?
yeah, and it comes with the bag of the เหมือนถุงข้าวสาร that they just throw the whole bag. I mean, after finish it, I just like, huh? Like, aren't you supposed to take it somewhere else? Like, I think the river. That's for me. So that's why my film I don't really have the. I mean, I would love to try with Kunikar, go to that level, but for me, I start from my point of view, and I think it's would relate it to the audience as well, since many audience also, your life is affected by the environmental some way somehow with the river, but you don't aware of it.
Or you don't live next to it.
That's
but
it,
the impact
yeah.
of what's happening to the river will affect you.
Yes, of course. Then and hopefully many people would be aware by now. Recently, the Mekong River turns blue. It was so beautiful, but somehow it's
It's not right.
dangerously. You feel something's wrong.
ครับคุณลิกา
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very connected with Mekong River. I think it goes back in a very, very early age. I'm sorry, I'm trying not to be so emotional about that. But I grew up right on the river bank after the war, after the Khmer Rouge War, and my mother sometime left me with my adopted grandparents, and she left to come to the city to find my other family, and so. I could not swim at that time. Until now, I still can't swim. And my mother was always very worried because she also can't swim. I cannot also swim, but she has to come and find a family and a place for us to live in the city. And so, I had memory where I stood by the river and waited for my mother to come back and see her go or wait for her to come back. And so I grew up on the river. And then when we came to the city, we came not living in the city straight away. We were about 6 kilometers from the city. It's called kilometer 6. And so we were kilometer
near
6.
Phnom Penh
Near
or-
Phnom Penh, yes. And our house was on the river, like on the actual river. So when the river is coming up, it's rise very high. It's quite close, like this is our house, that's the river. So close to that. And we have like a floating market, like the people riding the boat and call banana, something, eggs, all of that thing. So I was standing there and then watching them. And I think there was one time I jumped into the river because I wanted to learn, but I was safe. I couldn't swim. I was safe. And my mother ran back and screamed at me, "Don't ever do that again. Don't ever do that again." So I had very close touch with the river. And then even now, I mean, culturally, I mean, we all share the same culture, more or less, where a river is our mother. But for us, river is a celebration as well as worship. So when we offer, in our Buddhism, we offer a water to the monk to get blessing. We call takmun. In Thai, you also call takmun. So it called takmun, blessing water. So I like, namun, yeah. So we got blessing from there. So for us, water is, for us, in our region, water is very close to us. But as in society as a whole, we all need water. We all need air to breathe, and so water is very close to me emotionally, but practicality too. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Sai?
For me, I don't have a special connect to the river memory or something, but there are some song musics from my I listened from when I was in childhood. That get in my memory, which I really like a lot. It's about a Shan Revolution army song, but it's more poetic when he's singing. Like he was praying, asking help from the spirit of the river to help him get to the point he want to go.
It's a song.
It's a ethnic songs, and I really love that. And somehow when since I was listening in my childhood, and it's become like a kind of belief spirit in the river. And when I was filming this film, I also trying to look back the song, and I used to listen that song again.
Yes. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, that Mekong 2030 was initiated by Luang Prabang Film Festival, LPFF, which for the past 10 years, 9 years, 10 years, has been showcasing Southeast Asian films, feature films and short films. And this is the project, but also it is supported by Oxfam, right, and the Asia Foundation, right, and something else as well. Sorry if I didn't mention. Mekong River Commission, yes. So if I may, maybe somebody from Luang Prabang, Sean, or maybe Gabriel, maybe you can add something about the conception of the project and how did you choose the participants, the filmmakers, or how did it all come about, basically? Yes. Please, Gabriel Kapperman.
So we wanted to make a creative project that looked at a serious issue through a different lens, an unusual lens. Something that's often talked about in academic settings or in political settings. What should be done about the Mekong? But we wanted to take a different kind of creative approach to looking at the issues. So with support from 5 different partners, including the only one that you missed was the Heinrich Böll Foundation. We received support from them to enlist these 5 filmmakers to each make a short film, thinking about what could the river look like in the year 2030. And so the way we selected the filmmakers was through our own network. So for the last 10 years, we've been organizing this Southeast Asian Film Festival in Luang Prabang, and we kind of reached out to filmmakers that we thought would be good choices, that have made films about environmental issues before or other sensitive issues, and asked them to submit applications to us with extended treatments, actually. And then we selected the 5 filmmakers, and then like Kunikar mentioned, we brought them all to Vientiane for like a 3-day information summit. So they met for a full day with the Mekong River Commission and with the Asia Foundation, and also with Oxfam, so they could really get more background on the issues that the Mekong was facing. We kind of felt like it wasn't exactly right to get them to make films without giving them more information about the topic first. So I think that was a really helpful part of the process. And then we spent the next couple months refining their stories and their scripts and all that, and then they went through the production process. Kunikar, I want you to talk a little bit about your production struggles, because I think it's a really interesting part of this project. But so yeah, we had our first kind of preview of the films in December in Vientiane. So we invited different NGOs and our partners and people working in development to a screening in a cinema in Vientiane. It was very well received, and had a panel discussion with all 5 filmmakers there. So we're very fortunate to have all of them at that point. And then now we're in year 2 of the project. So we'll be spending this year getting the films to different festivals and conferences around the world. So really the point of the project is to create spaces for audiences and the public to have dialogue and have conversation with these filmmakers about the films, and also about the issues raised within the films. So that's what we'll be doing throughout this year. Are there any other questions about the project or how it works?
Today is the first public screening in Thailand or in Southeast Asia?
Yeah, we're still considering this a work print preview.
Work print.
But yes, it's never been shown in Thailand before. We're showing it tomorrow as well for some press. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Gabriel.
Do you mind talking about that? I think it's really interesting.
Because her film takes place mostly in the jungle and also along the river.
Yeah, that's right.
So I can imagine, the difficulty of shooting.
Yeah.
In
Production
locations.
was very, very, very challenging. I made 3 complicated films, but this is the most complicated one in terms of production. But I think the result I am very happy with, and I think my producers from the Luang Prabang Film Festival team also are happy, and so it makes everything all worth it. Connecting with the water that we just talked about. When I was that young girl growing on the river, I could not swim, and all the way through till now, I still can't swim. And my cast, the actress in the film, and my cameraman, a French guy, also could not swim. So the 3 of us could not swim, but we go deep in the river, and then we go from deep in the river. And some days we had storm and lightning, and we travel in the for about 45 minutes from our location in the dark. in the dark with the storm and rain and coming all the way through with our 4 rowing boats, the tail boats, connected with one another, like stripe it, 4 connecting like that, and we all just sit like that. And I remember my producer, Nick Ray, he's saying he's appointed someone. I appointed this swimmer watch my wife, and this swimmer watch the cameraman, and this swimmer watch the actress. So like we all have a swimmer, the crew that can swim, rescue us if anything happens. And then I think and that we film in Stang Train close to Laos, because it's the only location that provide us this extreme drought, extreme dry, and extreme flood in that location. But that is underneath that the extreme dry we had, but the extreme flood we didn't have. So we have to go even further right in the river where there is no houses, where there is no the end of the river to do that. And so our film is scheduled for 5 days in Stang Train. No, it turned out to be 10 days, 9 nights. Because on the river, you cannot just reverse like you are reversing the car on land, because you reverse against the current. And so you have to go with the current and then turn when you can. And not only, and I do not understand how we maneuvering around the river, because I can't swim, let alone understanding the current of the water. And so we had a team in Stang Train, the team in Stang Train, 7 people in Stang Train who helps us with the boats, who help us organizing, cook us for lunch, cook dinner for us, and all of that things. And so, so it was very challenging. And in Stang Train, I think till today, my mother over there probably will have a heart attack if she heard about this. A boat sunk. Our boat sunk. One of our boats sunk. My boat was fine. My boat and the other 3 boats, we came first. That was our 8th night, number 8. Yeah. And then the boat sank, and then my team can all swim. They are the prop department team. They can swim, so they all swim on the river, and they came back. And then I was feeling so guilty to put them all in there. And I said, okay, let's rest tomorrow. We do not do that. I will write to the Gabriel and Alex about this situation, and we extend another day to break. And then to my surprise, my team says, no, we film. I will fix the boat tonight, but we start at 12 o'clock tomorrow. You cannot start early because we need time to fix the boat. And then I said, are you sure? I said, no. I said, don't go to sleep. Sleep well. Tomorrow morning we meet at breakfast and we talk about it again. Tomorrow morning they are already on the island. They left since 4 a.m. to fix the boat. So that was that area in Stang Train, and my team was still on. And till now, this film is not just our film, me and Luang Prabang Film Festival, it's our team film, my actors, my actresses, my crew, and my cast. My cast asked me the last night of the shoot, he asked me that, Bong, sister, are you happy with this shoot? That was our last night shoot, and we shoot in the dark. It was raining too. And then we shoot almost all night. And he said, are you happy? And I look at him, I said, yeah, why? And he said, if you're not happy, we go on. We shoot again until you are happy. And I look at him, I just couldn't believe what he said, because we film so long, day and so night, and he still carry on. They rather drink rice wine to keep themselves going than stopping. So that was in the northeast of Cambodia. Then we come to Siem Reap. I think most of you know where Siem Reap is. Yeah, we came to Siem Reap. We had to split to 2 rivers. One is the main river called Kampong Pluk, which is the village where you find the steel house. Yes, the steel house. They find the steel house that looks like anywhere else in Cambodia. So it looks more like the Tumpun village in Ratanakiri. And we have to set in the film, it's supposed to be their new settlement. And so it looks like that, so we had to film that. We had to film that 3 nights on that stretch. And yes, the river was so low, and we filmed in September. We filmed 3 times. We filmed in May for the dryness, then we filmed in June, and then we wait until September to come, because we normally the river come up between end of June, July, August. By September, we will be having a very high river, but not 2019. So the effect of the river already began even during our shoot. And this is going back to why I said earlier that we feel the responsibility, the weight on us to take the voice of these people, of these villagers, onto screen, you know. So we waited in September, and the river was still so low. I go into the river to shoot our one scene that we try to say the world upside down, you know. So we look at the world from out below eye level. So the camera has to be very low. So we had a boat like that and the pagoda over there, and then my cameraman framed it, and he asked me, what do you think of this frame? I said, looks beautiful, but it's not telling the story. We need to go down there to get the story, because it need to make it look an upside down world. It need to be, the film starts from the top eye level, so which is beautiful, green, all of that. Problem happen, eye level, then upside down is when the climate change, the river is really dry and all of that. We go below the river, and so we go underneath the river, and it was the middle of the river, but it was this mud for me. It's like that, you know, and I'm not very tall, but it's, you know, it's quite muddy, and so my half body is in the mud to get that shot. So just show you how problem we have in terms of the river, in terms of the dryness. We already have it in 2019, and so yeah, so it was very big challenges. And then we came to the pagoda. We stay in the pagoda that night to go to film in the next village, where the river is more open into the lake, and you will see it at the end of the screening when the float house goes by itself on there, and that is a different location to the still house. So yes, so it's all these production challenges, but I want to thanks to my producers over there who are so patient with our lateness and delay and all of that thing. But I think we give them a good film.
What you wouldn't do for a movie, right? Anysay, I don't think you can match her story. Anyway, what time is the film? 7:20? 6:45. Huh? 6:45? No, the screening starts at what time? 7:30. 7. Okay. So I don't know if you guys have any question, but maybe my last question. Okay, for the three of you. Well, Kunikar has mentioned many times about extreme weather, right? And I think everyone has experienced themselves the impact of climate change or the environmental deterioration that has on us. You know, in Bangkok we have this situation with the dust, right? The smog, the dust. In Mekong, you have the river turning blue. You have the Chao Phraya turning chocolate. You have the sky turning gray with all the smoke. And you wake up every day thinking the apocalypse is coming. Right? Next, we will have the plague. I think the plague has already arrived in Africa or something. Right? So anyway, not a very good outlook on mankind. And we have brought it on ourselves. That seems to be the verdict. So, well, this may be like a very pessimistic question, but how do you see all of this? How much hope do you have? You made the film about environmental impact on the Mekong, and you talk a lot about how even the people who live by the river are not aware of the danger that is taking place all around them. So I don't know, in Laos, in Cambodia, in Myanmar, what is the level of awareness of the people or of the government, and how much people feel concerned about what's happening around them?
From the score out of 10, maybe 4.
10 meaning like very concerned.
Yeah.
Right?
The way in Laos, I felt like the way we deals with problems is to not try to make people panic, which is something quite similar to what's happening in Bangkok that I recently read.
If you don't go to the doctor, you're not sick, right?
From the point of view of the decision maker, they try to make everything under control. Even though now climate change, environmental, it's like at crisis level, I would say, already at crisis level. I read a lot as well that we almost at or already past the turning point where if you keep living like this, it will be impossible for us to get the same environment. It's very pessimistic question. I hope at one point we as a human, not as a nation or anything, we becomes really aware that it is a real crisis, and I don't know how we can wait. Now I think like it's the waiting between economy, environment, and the word sustainable development is like a utopia word that is somewhere there that we want to go, but even like with the with the world's recent last conference, COP, like it turns out that not successful about the carbon dioxide regulations, and that disappointed me. So I think we'll just do what you can do. Me as a filmmaker, as a storyteller, I try to do what I can, and hopefully it will affect as a chain reactions. And I don't know, that day will come where, you know, if you have to choose money over or the environment.
Kunikar, from the score of 10, maybe?
Yeah. I'm afraid to give the score, but I think it's this. I think there's a proactive and reactive, and I think the proactive one is I'm not very sure how much measure we as a government have put in place, but people are resilient. And so I think if there is problem arise up to the nose, I think we have to swim, even we don't know how. So maybe there is a reactive to the situation, and I think there may be strategy has put in places already, but it's the matter of how effective that strategy is, and how can we save the situation in time, you know, and that is very hard to say, and because we are not sitting in the government office, you know, to know all of that thing. I think they put some strategy in place, that's for sure. How much that strategy save us is another question. And like Anysay say, we all have, each of us has responsibility. I think hopefully our film will reach more people, and that reach more to people who are concerned about it, who know other people who are concerned about it, who know people who can make an effective decision. They can watch the film and they can think about it, you know. So we all can just hope on that front. But what that affects us right now already is when I went back in April to do the scout in the village. I met the family. I met a few families, but there's one family that I'm very close with, and there's a girl called Sila. And she was working, you know, doing the planting vegetable on the riverbank and all of that thing, and harvesting in the harvesting season. But when I went back to shoot in June, she was gone to Phnom Penh and work in the factory. And not only her, a few girls from the village also go to work in the factory. And to me, that's a big shock, because, you know, Cambodian, we are not a business people, but we are agriculture and we are artistic in our own way. And so by leaving our culture, what we are good at, to be working in the factory and adopt it as we become the labor industry, you know, rather than what we are good at. And I think that is a big, another big thing that impact what is that. Can I just one more thing, when I talk about the production issue earlier, I forgot to say that the big shock things for me when I shoot on the film on the river was when the lady said, the fisherman said to me that this year we put the fishing net on the river, we got plastic and grass, as in fish. There was no fish on the river. And I heard more and more about that as time goes by, and there was a girl when, yeah, that was very big thing, yes.
Sai?
For me, about the awareness. I think only some NGO and they will focus about this thing, but it doesn't make. I don't think it make people aware a lot. Only except the people who is living in the area. But most of the people who is living in the around this environmental issue mostly they are the ethnic groups, and mostly they dare not to talk. It doesn't make a lot of voice outside. So I don't think there's much awareness, except some NGO make some research on it. But while making this film, the first thing that impacts is my personal impacts, which I'm getting more into this thing. And I after finished the film, I went back to the area again, and I make a small workshop for them. It's called like participatory video. It's like just showing them, give them a small camera, and then make them go out and make the voice out themselves. So I think it's something that's the only thing is with my personal impact, that I could do something for them, that they start analyzing their issue.
I think that's a perfect ending, because your film is called The Forgotten Voices of the Mekong, right? And usually when there's a big problem, environmental problem, economic problem, political problem, the people who are affected the most are the minority or the small people. In this case, the people who live along the Mekong River, as in your film, is the Akha people who live along the Mekong. And of course, they bear the biggest brunt of the damage, of the danger that is happening in the region and along the river. I think we have some time for questions, if you have any. I always believe that the films best speak for themselves. Wish I'm going to see the film soon, but still, we have time for one or two questions, please.
Hello. Just want to know if there were some constraints from the government. Did you get, were you, for example, forced not to speak about some of the things happening around the Mekong River, or have you been totally free to do whatever you wanted to talk about the Mekong River? All of you. You're living in 3 very democratic countries, so you can all talk about 4, sorry.
Yeah. I think you probably already knows the answers, but just to confirm. So to make this film, to make a film, any film in Laos, we have to submit we have to get 2 permissions: permission to shoot and permission to screen. So that is already a way that they can filter out what can be talked about and what not. The river, this topic, if you look at it in a more constructive, not criticizing way, they would encourage us to talk about it. One example is the Australian film called The Rocket, which criticizing the dam and reallocations of the people. So that movie was about banned. So I think you have some clear picture what can say and what can in the public.
Yeah, I think we had probably more or less the same policy in the 2 countries. But my film, we went through permissions with the Ministry of Culture. Location permissions is a must, and we got it from the Ministry of Department of Environment of the Stang Trai province, also in Siem Reap as well. So we got that. So I don't think. I think our script and our story is not directly criticizes anyone. It's more about telling the story of the livelihood on the Mekong River and the fact that it's not only on just the Mekong River, it's Cambodia as a whole. Because in our story, we have the lowerland Mekong, upperland Mekong character, and the Cambodian from the mainland, from the city in Phnom Penh. So we have two different characters. So we have, both sides of. We have both ethnic from the same countries, and so. It's just a film to tell the story about Cambodia and the problem that we have, and what can we do with that is a question probably the script reader at the ministry will be asked us later. I'm not very sure, but so far so good. We got our license. Yeah, thank you.
Would you like to add something on that side? Censorship, basically.
And actually, this film we don't go censorship from Myanmar. But the other films there we do have censorship, and lately there are some freelance some independent filmmaker. They want to get attention to the government more about on the censorship, and like smoking or drinking wine. Also, there's very strict censorship still.
Yes, I have been alerted that time is up, but I think we have had a very good discussion. Very, very solid, very substantial, and this is to prepare you for the films themselves. Or the 5 films from Mekong 2030 will be shown out there, right, on the big screen in 20 minutes. So please join the directors at the screening. So thank you so much, Anysay, Kunikar, and Timsai. Thank you.